Gordon Watson live on Kick, and Premier League week 1 has been and gone, and it's very interesting to actually see who thinks that they've got the best hand. We've seen loads of goals, we've seen clean sheets, we've seen dismal performances, we've seen some really, really good ones. Over the next 45 minutes, I'm not going to be hanging about. I'm going to go through every single game, talking about strengths, weaknesses, and maybe taper it down. Let's not get too carried away. If you've won game 1, so what? You're maybe not going to be winning the league. And if you're a bottom side and you've won game 1, you still may not survive. In fact, one of the best performances I see over this weekend was a team that actually got beat. And there's another team that got beat that if they'd have taken their chances, it would have been completely different. So what we're going to do is we're going to go and get ourselves in the chat. So I'll just be obviously saying hi. And if there's any questions or disagreements, I'm more than happy for this as we get on over the few weeks. And we're obviously small sample size at the moment. But if you then believe that I'm talking rubbish, fine, absolutely no problem. We will then have a discussion, and that's the best way to thrash it out. Because I'm not tribal. I give it and say exactly as I see. I'm not going to be right 100% of the time, but more often than not, it's going to give us the best preparation to next weekend. So obviously we've got at the 10 games, we're going to go through them and let's have a little look. Okay, so I'm going to kick off straight away with let's go with Arsenal versus Coventry. Now, Arsenal obviously won 3-0. They were very, very good on the night. Now, they was always expected to win, but it was like the manner in what they won. Forget the 3-0. Scoreline here was absolutely nothing. It was all about what Arsenal would turn up. Would they be sloppy? Would they? Obviously, they've just lifted the Premier League. But on the night, and this was a bonus as well, being Premier League champions, playing under the lights. I thought they were sharp. I thought that they shifted the ball, 1 touch, 2 touch. New players came in. They looked really, really good. They had movement. They had overlapping runs. They had movement off the ball in forward areas. They passed it. But when they passed it, they didn't you saw maybe 2 or 3 options for each player when he got on the ball. And the quality they had just was far too much for Premier newcomers Coventry. So 9 out of 10 for me. Not because they were they won 3-0. Let's get that out the window. Obviously, Havertz scored, Saka scored, Odegaard scored with 2 touches. If you haven't seen it, he shot with 1 foot, hit the other, and just spun in. So we didn't really learn a lot about Arsenal in the negative. I thought that they got a little bit sloppy last 20 minutes and left themselves a little bit exposed by defending too high. If they were in a 1v1 situation with just a long, hopeful ball from the opposition, then that might just lend to us not going with Arsenal winning to 0, because they were 3-0 up, cruising. And even though they came up against a Premier League newcomer, they could have conceded late on, and they had no right to concede. So, I mean, you've just got to have a little look at that, because they are going to dominate games, but will they then switch off? Because there was a couple of times in the last 20 minutes when right back was caught too far up the pitch. The defending pair of Arsenal were almost in the Coventry half, meaning that if we get some lively sub coming on for the opposition, they could be in a foot race. And then obviously it doesn't matter if you're Arsenal or you're Coventry, you are going to be in trouble. So I'd just like maybe Arsenal to maybe drop 10, 15 yards, kill off the game, and not be drawn in to being too far up the pitch. But I thought their movement was excellent. Gyökeres didn't even play, and the bench was absolutely stacked. Arteta is going to look behind him, and he could just close his eyes and pick any 5 to go on, and they're going to be probably 70%, 75% of the time better than the teams they're playing who started. Let's go with Coventry. I thought Coventry, it's not fair to assess them too harshly. First game, it was always going to be a free hit for them. It was always going to be uphill task. They were never expected to get anything. I thought they kept their shape and their discipline really, really well. I also identified 2 or 3 players that had really, really good pace. I think in 3 or 4 weeks, we're going to see whether we can then bet and be trusting Coventry. I think that next week they play Hull. I think it's another watching brief because for them to win, it's like minus money. But we will go back to that at the end when I do the roundup. But all in all, I thought that Coventry will be best judged on maybe the next 2 or 3 games against teams that 50-50, 60-40 in their favour, that they're entitled to go and win. The other thing I want to see with Coventry this weekend is they were the best in the Championship last year at set pieces. I thought they defended the set pieces really well against Arsenal, who were the best in the Premier League. And I think that they may well, over the next few weeks, score from set pieces. So let's just put like a little question mark. Let's not go over the top or like try and beat up on Coventry, because obviously they were playing the champions, who for me are head and shoulders above anything else in this league. So Coventry, good luck. Look forward to watching them again next week. But I want them to, this is where their season starts. I want them to be on the front foot. I want them to use this pace, and I want them to be hungry to go and get 3 points. Okay, let's move on to the next game. Okay, the next game was an absolute embarrassment. I'm going to start off with Aston Villa, because Aston Villa and Unai Emery have been dealt an unbelievably bad hand. Okay, Conster's left, Tielemans left, Rodgers left, Watkins didn't play because they say that he's going to leave. I don't know what's going on, but let's just go with what we saw. They could have been 1-0 up after 5 minutes. Didn't take their chance. And then everything went to pieces. They couldn't control the game. You got Ross Barkley in midfield. The whole midfield, basically, of Aston Villa was caught too far forward, couldn't recover, played in the wrong areas. Their brains were scrambled. And when they went 1-0 down, and they went 1-0 down after 8 minutes, and it was a Lindelof own goal, they just went, every time that Brighton got the ball, they looked like they were going to score. The belief drained on day one from this whole unit. And this is a side, and this is the sad thing, that Aston Villa, they won a European trophy less than, 4 months ago. And now their spine's been ripped out. They are now in real trouble to actually go and even maybe halfway, 10, because they need to score goals. They need to keep clean sheets. Their defence is an absolute nightmare. I mean, you've got Pau Torres on the left side, who, for me, I've never been a fan of. On the bench, Tyrone Mings. You've got Lindelof. It's almost like they're just a team of bandits. Matty Cash one side. I really worry. I really worry for Villa. They've got to get some players in, because on the day, there was very, very few positives. I suppose the biggest positive for them was that it only stayed at 4, because Brighton could have scored 7, 8, and a little bit disappointed that it was 4-0 at half-time and it ended 4-0. Let's talk about Brighton, though, because they started the first 5 or 6 minutes, and Villa they took the game to them. Then they got their goal. Then it was just one-way traffic. We know that obviously Villa went down to 10 men. So again, it's going to highlight it. That's why we don't want to get too carried away. But there was runners going into the box. They were passing and moving. They kept their shape and then tried to hit you on quick counters. They pressed in midfield and dispossessed people. So basically they were setting traps. They were setting traps all over Villa's half of the pitch. Villa then played into it because they couldn't go long because there was no focal point. So Villa played into Brighton's hands even more once they went 1-0 down. Then it went 2, then it went 3, then it went 4. And there was nothing more we could really take out the game, because Brighton done exactly what they should be doing once they're in front against 10 men at home on the opening day of the season. Now, Brighton go to Chelsea. We will speak about that that game at the end when we do a quick run through of the 10 games and we look to see what we've seen so far and where we want to go. But Brighton, this is a game spoiled. It was spoiled by Villa's board, basically, and Brighton were fantastic. And when you're given a gift, unwrap it and take it. Game 1, 3 points for Brighton. Okay. Honestly, I've got to get rid of the ridiculous very, very quickly here. We've got Brentford 3, Spurs 0. 2-0 up at half-time, Brentford. Brentford do what Brentford do. They put you under pressure from everywhere on the pitch. They have fullbacks who turn up in centre-forward position. Lewis Potter, who got the first goal after 12 minutes, which is a great start. Again, first game of the season at home, and they press. They have pace. They have players who want to keep the ball. I think Sangare in midfield gave them unbelievable drive. Spurs weren't even at the races, and this is where I'm going to give Spurs a little bit of a pass, because the initial impression was they're going to be as bad as they were last year. I don't think we see that 11 line up and start a game again this season. Porro's got to come in for Spurs. Van der Ven's got to come in. I think Morrison's got to start. I think Fernandez has got to start. I think Solanke's got to start. You got Kulusevski and you got Kudus. And it's almost like I think the manager and the board, and I don't know this, but it looked like it. It looked like the shop window. It looked like we've got to get rid of players, and the only way we're going to get rid of them is by putting them in the shop window, because there's 4 or 5 players that I would not expect to be starting many games for Spurs this year. They were an absolute joke. Hardly had a kick of the ball. Mikey Moore, we're giving him a massive pass. A young lad, could have scored a couple of goals. But it's no good closing the barn door after the horse has bolted, and the horse was bolted. So if Spurs had scored, it would have just flattered them. Let's go back for Brentford, because their massive strengths are delivery from set pieces, pace in Sade and Thiago, the pace drive from Sangare. Then you've got your lovely ball players in midfield like Jensen. You've got your fullbacks who just want to bomb. I mean, Coyote scored again. You got Ouattara in there. This is a real handful at home. Last year, they only lost 3 games at home. I think that was like maybe the only 3 teams had better home record. So Brentford at home are definitely going to be considered, regardless of who they play. And the big shock here, and it's only a shock after the event, because a lot of people would have probably had Brentford to win and both teams to score, because Brentford don't keep clean sheets. They weren't troubled really all day. Spurs huffed and puffed and didn't give them any sleepless minutes. So yeah, Brentford 3, Spurs 0. Spurs will give you a pass, because I don't think we'll see that team again. Brentford, you do what you do. You will be on our list for we want to be with you during the season. Okay, the next one I'm going to go to is Man City versus Bournemouth. Let's start off with Man City, because I thought their midfield was an utter joke. I was really surprised by the team selection. I know that obviously there was no Doku, but he was obviously injured. But Rico Lewis playing out there. I mean, we're talking about a team that should be pushing for Champions League. Well, Rico Lewis, first of all, is not a Champions League player. Then we've got Foden, who's been lack of form, lack of confidence for the best part of 12 months. Haaland, after I think it was 13 minutes, had a 5 yards out, should have scored. Then it's a completely different game. Semenyo doing what Semenyo does. O'Reilly, he was half decent for about 45 minutes. Then we didn't really get to see him. So I'm thinking Maresca, there was no game plan. It was down to let's get the ball to individuals and let's see what comes out. Like, throw the balls in the air. Let's just see how they land, because there was no up, back, throughs. There was no overlapping. It was all drive really from O'Reilly or Semenyo. Nobody else really gave me any minutes of quality. And guess what happens? What always happens against Man City? They're on the attack. They lose the ball. They get out-muscled. They break. The opposition break. They slide the ball across the face of goal. And they concede from nowhere. And it happened again. And I could probably show you 10 times last year where it happened exactly the same way. So there's still big problems there. I'm not trusting Man City. I thought they looked really average, and very fortunate to get a 2-1 win. Guy scored, free header from a set piece. Good delivery, free header, but he missed a free header as well. Now, this whole game could have changed if Haaland takes his chance early. They go 1-0 up, and then obviously everything's rosy. I'm not trusting Man City in the short term. I know they're going to be at Palace. We're going to have a chat, obviously, at the end. But for Man City, I need to see more Cherki. I need to see someone where I can give him the ball and he's going to take the game by the horns and he's going to create. Going to be a different side once we have Doku one side, then we have Semenya the other side, and then we've maybe got fullbacks going forward as well. At the back, I think they're just ripe to get torn because the midfield looks weak. The midfield is not controlling, and that's a damning thing because Man City at home on the opening day should have been totally dominant. It was too easy for Bournemouth. And let's talk about Bournemouth because Bournemouth, yes, they were 1-0 up. But when you go to a team like Man City and you go 1-0 up, it's easy to sit back and basically just defend. But they defended in units. They did really well. They threw their bodies in front of strikes. They shepherded people. They were really, really together. Now, there's a new manager gone there. And normally we'd say about continuity. The pattern of play and the DNA didn't look much different. So there's a massive positive that Bournemouth was a free hit going to Man City. They go 1-0 up. They'll be bitterly disappointed. They didn't come away with at least a draw, but they could have got their asses spanked if Haaland takes that chance after 13 minutes. He didn't. They went 1-0 up. They still got nothing. But now, next week, when they're at home for the first time this year, I think that we could see Brighton get on the board with their first 3 points. I thought that the normal suspects were really good. Obviously, Tavernier got his goal. I thought that the biggest plus I'd say about Bournemouth were there was a togetherness. They were comfortable in the ball all over the pitch. They played triangles. The players didn't get isolated, and they defended. The negative would be 3 or 4 times. Haaland, obviously, again, after 13 minutes, middle of the 6-yard box, no one near him. Then I would say Guy from a set-piece free header when he ducks out and should have scored. Then Guy, they didn't learn by that mistake. Then Guy, he does get a free header again for his goal, even though it takes a deflection. And they thought that the Guardiola was offside, but they weren't in line. So probably I would say that Bournemouth are a team that we will want to be with at home. I think that they will score goals, but on this occasion, they should have and maybe could have come out with something a little bit more. Looking forward to watching Bournemouth at home this weekend because if they show the energy and the togetherness, their home form, they may well be very, very tough to beat. Okay, let's go with, this was, it says 2-2. The game was so frustrating. Let's start with Liverpool, who got a 99th minute. I know it was 99th minute equaliser, but I think the penalty was like given in like the 94th. It took like 5 minutes to sort it out. Okay, so Liverpool, for me, they weren't ready. They were indecisive. They played a back four where Jacquet looked like a competition winner. I'm not having him at all. Kerkez, I thought, was just nowhere near a Liverpool fullback. Szoboszlai was good, but they were so indecisive, and yet they were so much better than Newcastle. Every single minute, I mean, okay, you've made your mistakes, but they seem to have a lack of confidence, or they were over complicating even the most simplest of passes, which is a massive problem. Gakpo on the left. Well, I close my eyes. If someone said, oh, what's he going to do? Well, he's going to feint to go left, cut in on his right and try and bend one. Scored a really good goal. Wirtz was missing, had one shot in the whole game. I find that Gravenbach was okay at best, but the couple of times that he could have and should have probably struck a shot on goal actually led to both of the Newcastle goals. So Liverpool conceded 2 goals at a place that's hard to go to, and they were at fault for both the goals. So Gravenbach should have shot, tries to flick it inside, they break, and within 3 seconds later, Newcastle have scored. And it happened again. Liverpool were not ruthless enough in their passing. They weren't ruthless enough in their movement. And the 2 lads who actually came on and gave them a little bit of a spark, it was just so needed. So we got these stars playing. Isak was just huffing and puffing, putting a shift. Szoboszlai was decent. Paul Rio, young lad, we've got to give him a pass and hope that he grows. But again, there was nothing from him either. So for me, I was so hopeful that Liverpool would go out and put in on a performance. But no, they were not very good at all. And they got away with murder by getting the 2-2. Even though I thought on the day, they played against the Newcastle side, who were very passive. Newcastle didn't create much. Both their goals came from pace. Now, there's a positive about Newcastle, that if you overcommit, they have Osulu, Visa, Alanga, who, by the way, scored, what did he score after 5 minutes? Didn't hardly see him again. I don't think he touched the ball until like the 60th. And you've got Harvey Barnes. So there's 4 there. No creativity in the middle of the park. None whatsoever. At home, regardless of who you're playing, Newcastle should be creating more. I didn't see any, let's get it into the front, let's feed it back, let's get some overlaps in. The 2 boys at the back, Fail, no, I'm not having him. I'm certainly not having him. I thought they took a backward step too easily. Goalkeeper made a good save from Wirtz. Newcastle were very passive. They were almost like, we can't believe that we're leading this game. And then Gakpo scores a good goal. And then they get the gift again from Gravenbach, trying to flick it on the edge of the Newcastle box. Goes to Visa, 3 Liverpool players around him in the Newcastle half. He spins out of it because no one is ruthless enough just to say, right, we've just got to 1-1. And then it points that neither of these sides have leaders. Neither of these sides have captains of their ships. Szoboszlai was probably the best player for Liverpool. Visa was probably the best player for Newcastle. But both of these teams are not to be trusted. Another negative about Liverpool, and they're going to play Forest at home next week, is they're paper thin. The two lads that came on for Liverpool, they did well in a short burst. Kumas, I thought he was good. Munoz, who got the penalty, yeah, but we need to see it over a longer period. I do not like the way that Liverpool's squad is so threadbare. They are going to struggle with any injuries, any suspensions, or any players' loss of form. Wirtz has got to find something very, very quickly. Otherwise, he may find himself on the bench and a young lad's going to come in. Overall, though, Newcastle weakness was passive. Newcastle's strength was their pace when hitting teams on the break. And they hit teams on the break at home. So that was a real massive bonus for them. Took their goals well, but really they created in normal open play very little. And Liverpool have got to be so much sharper in their minds. And then that will then spread to them being able to shift the ball quickly and open up teams. And when they get that opening, they've got to be ruthless to pull the trigger. Okay. Interesting game, this, Forest versus Leeds. I fancied Leeds before. I thought I'd just sit and watch. Leeds do what Leeds do. They're very, very good. They're a team. Players come off the bench. They're still just as solid. They want to take the game to you. They got what they deserve. Again, they never lose belief. And they're going to be tough. They will definitely be fine because they're not reliant on one individual. I thought a couple of times their confidence was a little bit overplayed. They played a couple of times in the wrong areas. They love to play it out from the back. Man, like Ampadu comes short in even plays. You can get caught out. But Forest is not an easy place to go. But on the opening day of the season, with no Elliot Anderson in the opposition, I thought that Leeds were terrific. They got their just desserts. I don't think there was a lot in the game, but Leeds definitely didn't deserve anything worse than a draw, and they've come away with 3 because we said prior to this season starting, Leeds will stay in games and they will be strong in the last 10 or 15 minutes of games because of their belief, their fitness, their togetherness, and they give you exactly what you'd want as a supporter. So really, really pleased for Leeds. And Leeds' next game is at home to Brentford, which basically they're on a par. But again, we're going to talk about that at the end. Forest, no pattern of play. I thought this was down to let's get the ball in certain areas, fight balls. I thought they were very dangerous going down the right, cutting back and putting deliveries into the box. I think they're living off of maybe set pieces, corners when they can get dominant defenders. I think the defenders are strong. I don't think many teams are going to go to Forest and win 3 or 4. I think every sort of Forest defeat at home is either going to be like this, 1-0, 2-1. I think we might see a few draws because I don't see no cutting edge. I think it's too easy for opposition teams to go and nail down Forest's danger men. And the danger men are not 9 out of 10. They are maybe a 7 out of 10 and the odd 8. Forest are going to be okay because their manager is decent, but he is very, very new to this group of players. If it was 0-0, I'd have said, okay, fair enough. No, nobody's got away with murder here. The strengths are going to be if they can keep games compact because they're athletic. They do compete, have great attitudes. They have defenders who want to head the ball. They don't really get caught out of position. I would question that they don't get enough bodies in the opposition box, unlike their counterparts in this game, because Leeds, the ball goes forward, and you see a desire from players to want to get the knockdown, want to get across people. So this game was one of those where, I mean, I'm not really going to want to be with Forest unless there's a team really out of form. I don't really want to be opposing Forest at home because they are the type of side that will beat a good side 1-0. But yeah, Forest are going to be, I think, maybe just in that sort of bottom 6 because they don't score enough goals because they're not got a cutting edge. A team has a bad day, they might outmuscle. They might win a game 1-0, 2-1 from a set piece. But they are certainly not going to be rushing to say who have Forest got next week, as in I want to be with them. They might be one of them sides you don't fade, but you don't back them. You can't go overs. You're probably more likely to go unders. I bet Everton, and they won 2-0. And I came away feeling I was very, very fortunate. Now, we know the continuity was all with Everton. They play neat, tidy. The game was very open from like the 3rd or 4th minute where they scored after 42. They had chances, but they could have been behind and should have been behind because 2 of the most glaring misses outside of maybe Thiago's penalty miss happened in this game, and they both fell to Crystal Palace players. Okay, and Nketiah had if you want to talk about XG, it must have been 100%. It must have been a 1 because I was waiting for the net to bulge. He hits the woodwork, and then Mateta does exactly the same thing. So let's start with Everton. Neat, tidy, no pace in recovery positions. So if it's Ndoye and it breaks down off of the young lad up front, or Dewsbury Hall overcomplicates it, then the opposition are going to get at you. This game 1, I think Moyes is not going to allow that because even though Everton won 2-0, Palace were very, very dangerous and could have and should have been in front. This is the biggest team got beat, but will be ruining massive misses. Palace are good on the ball. Palace did well in midfield as well. Their weakness was they didn't see danger quick enough that when the ball went into the front, they were half a yard off. Well, some of these strikers do not need a yard, half a yard to get their shot off. And Dewsbury Hall got that. I think they needed a second. But Everton are going to be one of them sides where it's going to come down to how deep they defend. I think they're going to be far better when they don't take the game to the opposition. I think that when it's a scrap, and then we're talking about them being at home, interesting, they go to Bournemouth next. I think they may come unstuck. But I also believe that it may be like a little war of attrition. But set pieces are going to be so important for Everton. So important. We go back to Palace. Palace were good through the middle of the park. Palace were very good at breaking, so misplaced passes in their final third. They broke in numbers. There was almost a belief and an athleticism that they are going to be dangerous. And I believe they'll score goals. But that's because the game was open, and it was open from a very, very early stage. Palace are one of them sides I'm going to keep an eye on because I was a little bit down on them. I think that they may well cause a few problems. They've got obviously Mateta up front, but Walton in the middle of the park was very good as well. They have good energy, and this is a game that they would want back. I felt for them a little bit, even though I was happy and the Duck did his walk. And if you want to follow me, make sure you do on X, _37. The Duck was happy that we cashed, but honestly, I think Palace should have got something out of the game. This is the game that has given me so much belief. Okay, so we've got Ipswich come up from the Championship. First home game against a big, strong prototype, if you like, because Sunderland came up last year. Okay, they win 2-1. Ipswich were very, very passive. Okay, no yellow cards up against a big, strong Sunderland, so they didn't impose themselves. They capitalised on two mistakes that Sunderland made by getting overconfident, but we'll get to Sunderland in a minute. They kept going. You can say they got rewarded. I don't know what they got rewarded for, even though in the 90th minute, another mistake, they took their chance. So they got 3 points. Their creativity was not good enough. I thought their press from midfield was neither here nor there. So they didn't get close enough to put pressure on the lad with the ball. And they left gaps between defence and midfield for players to go and turn. I think they've got, obviously, enthusiasm because some of these players couldn't even dream of playing in the Premier League, and now they are. So they've got to make sure that dream becomes reality very quickly. Otherwise, it'll be a one-season wonder and they'll be gone. So all in all, I thought Ipswich, yeah, congratulations, you got your 3 points. But Sunderland, very impressed with. Really, really impressed with. Every attribute you'd want from a team other than the two mistakes they made that they cost them dearly, they tick the boxes. It's not easy to go to a newly promoted side on day one. I thought they carved out 4 golden opportunities. I think Brobbery is going to be an absolute nightmare for opposing defenders. Siddiqui in midfield is almost in that Sangari role and Sangari mould. You've got Xhaka, who pulls the strings. You've got athletes all over the pitch. I was so impressed with the way that Sunderland went about their business. And that and them will have the worst trip home out of any of the teams that got defeated this weekend. Because if I'm a manager, I'm coming in and I'm saying to them, that is exactly what I asked. The mistakes are going to happen. Hopefully they don't happen twice in one game and it costs us 2 goals. you play like that, we are going to be more than fine. And next week, their first home game, they play against Fulham. And I can tell you already, and we're going to obviously cover that game at the end, plus 158 Sunderland were to beat Fulham. They're now plus 140. They're plus 143 to score twice. I think they win, and I think they score twice. Really, really impressed with Sunderland, and Brobbery is going to be a real problem, as is Sunderland's runners, because Xhaka will sit there, and maybe a team is going to have to look at film and go, we cannot allow them the time and space that Ipswich allowed. And maybe Ipswich are going to look at and say, we've got to get rattled in. But listen, I know Gary O'Neill. I've played with him. Pure football. Wants to play the right way. But if you're going to succeed at this level, you've got to have a little bit more of a nasty streak. And there was no sign of that. 0 yellow cards on the first game of your season. You didn't have to stamp your authority all over, and you got away with 2 bad mistakes in the wrong areas from overplaying from Sunderland. That was only down to confidence. They were so good. Okay, if you didn't get to see the game, you want to go and see some highlights. They were really, really good. I want to be with Sunderland, maybe home and away at certain times. We talk about stamping authority on the game. This was an absolute joke. Hull City versus Man United. Hull won 2-0. Hull scored both their goals from set pieces. Hull beat Man United up, basically, took them out their stride. I looked at this game and thought, this looks like an FA Cup tie where the underdog was at home, the big giant that is Manchester United Football Club, come into town, and they earned the right. They jumped all over them. I don't think there was a decent performance from any of the Man United players. Let's look at the massive positives of Hull. And it was almost agricultural. It was, let's get the ball into McBurney, who wants to fight and scrap and work and not give you a second's rest. And then you've got a midfield that will squeeze the ball and invite you to go long. Every ball was contested. And again, like Ipswich, they were at home with their first game back in the Premier League. And it could not have gone any better for them. Now, big problem is, if they don't score from set pieces, they didn't really look like scoring against a Man United side that put in a 4 out of 10 performance. So can you open up teams? Because you can't rely on set pieces. So you have then got to make sure that you've got players, and I didn't identify any players in that midfield area or wingers that were going to actually get down, go past someone, play a 1-2, cut inside, feed it into the front, get it back. I saw none of that. It was all, we will outfight you, we will put you under pressure, we will force you into mistakes, and then they got their reward. And don't get me wrong, Man United had very few chances. I think Mbeumo went through and could have scored. Man United, I thought the team selection was maybe okay at best. Dorgu, how does he get a starting position when we've got Rashford? Now, Tielemans let the game go by, considering it was his first game. I thought Fernandes, if you're going to play against Fernandes and I'm a coach, you get up against him, you get him moaning early, and you put him off his game. That's exactly what Hull did. Now, the big one is Man United go at home next week against the opposite to Hull. Man United will play Ipswich, who don't do what Hull did. So if you're a Man United fan, you cannot wait. You cannot wait for this next game. And we will have a look at the numbers, and we will come back. But Man United were that bad that you go to Hull and they weren't prepared for the scrap. They weren't prepared to go and earn the right to the 3 points. And they got what they deserved. Defending was shocking. The creativity was just like 5 out of 10. It was very, very predictable. But even when they were down, I saw no desperation in Manchester United. It was almost like there was an arrogance that they were going to get back in the game. Man United let in 2 goals from set pieces. Here's the big weakness. That was their problem last year, letting goals in from set pieces. How? Well, you need a leader that's going to go and say, get up against your man and let's make sure that we don't go behind. It's almost like a long throw now becomes a set piece against Manchester United. I think they'll score goals at home. I think that going forward, they could be as good as any if they're allowed to play. Rashford one side, Mbeumo, especially when they play against Ipswich, and Cunha can maybe go and sit in them holes and Fernandes can feed it in. I think that they could have an absolute field day. So negative, Man United weren't up for the fight. Positive is really that they can bounce back really quickly, because the cherry-picked opposition that you would want after this game is Ipswich at home, and that's exactly how the fixtures have fallen. Then we come to the last one. I'm going to be a bit harsh here, but I've got to keep it real. It's Fulham 2, Chelsea 3. Let's start with a massive, massive positive of Chelsea. Palmer, Rodgers, and Pedro up front. Going to cause problems all day, every day, at any time of a game. Frightening movement, frightening individual ability, and they're going to need to stay fit, okay? Now, the weakness for Chelsea, which is alarming, is their goalkeeper, which I cannot believe we're talking about a club that spent billions and they haven't sorted out one of the most important positions, because Sanchez, for me, is just all over the shop, whether it's distribution, wrong decisions, whether it's near post, it got done in this game. Well, it wasn't even near post. It went like 1.5 yards, 2 yards inside the near post. There were 6 players who were defensively minded starting in this Chelsea lineup. The biggest positive, I would say, was Lacroix, and he was only okay. I'm not having Colwell. I'm not having Gusto. I'm not having Hato. I know Lavia. He doesn't chase back. He doesn't see danger. I think the defence, just with straight balls. They've conceded 2 tonight, and Fulham didn't create anything at all. Fulham are not good, but we'll get to Fulham in a second. Chelsea, if they think that's okay, the biggest positive they can take out of this game is they've scored 3 from 3 wonderful footballers against a really bad team, because I think Fulham are not good at all. And another positive is the bad team didn't take the chances that were gifted to them by the defensive slackness of the Chelsea of Colwell trying to play out in the wrong positions, with Lavia not tracking, with Gusto wanting to play inside, with Hato thinking he's got time on the ball. Defenders just defend. And this stunk. Chelsea have not been good defensively for a few years, and that's been their problem, because they've always scored goals. But you've seen games when they lose like 5-2 and 5-3 and things like that, or they win 4-3. Well, Alonso had this problem when he was at Leverkusen. Massive positive. First game, 3 goals, boys up top, massive confidence booster. And the biggest one is it's 3 points. Now, straight balls from Fulham caused all sorts of problems. We had one straight ball over the top. Sanchez looked like he was wandering around the high street at 3 a.m. looking for a burger. He was like nowhere near. And Robinson, and this game could have been 3-3. And yeah, it should have been like 4-0. Chelsea did not control this game. Well, you're not really likely to control it if you're playing Reece James, who's a defensive midfielder, defender, and Lavia. But They were far, far better than the opposition because the opposition created nothing at home in over 90 minutes. It was all down to the mistakes or the allowance of Chelsea not pressing. 1-0 up after a minute, dream start, local derby, first game of the season. I thought Chelsea would have jumped all over them. No, invited them back into the game, switched off, and it's 1-1. Fulham, no creativity in the middle of the park. Defensive pairing, I think they ball watch and they play in straight lines. So you've got any movement against them, you're going to get in. I think King is a positive. I think that Iwobi, who's meant to be like half playmaker, and that's too deep. And they don't hurt teams. They look so much better than they actually are tonight because Chelsea allowed it. And Chelsea could have had been 4-5 if they wanted. This game, everything you look at, all the positives that you could take if you're kidding yourself, if you're a Fulham fan, were down to Chelsea allowing you to be that way. Because if you played against Arsenal tonight, that would have been 4 or 5-0. And you would not have even maybe had a shot on goal. So I don't want to be anywhere near Fulham. And we're going to find out how right I am in the coming weeks. But the big question mark now is with Chelsea. We know they're going to score goals, but how are they going to win games if they continue to encourage the opposition, even when they're in winning positions, even when they are so on top? Really disappointed with Chelsea today, other than they scored 3. Palmer, Rodgers, Pedro looked great. I just really disappointed that if they think that type of performance, that type of mental adjustment in the game when they went 1-0 up after 1 minute is good enough for the Premier League? No. They got Arsenal in a few weeks. I'm telling you now, Arsenal will tear them limb from limb. Okay? But listen, bottom line, 3 points, first game. Let's go on. Let's hope that Alonso can do something with them defenders because I'm not having them. And the keeper, he's like a competition winner who they've just given gloves to. All right. So that's them 10 games. Now we're going to look at, okay, I'm going to get rid of Chelsea. And we're going to talk about the games and the matchups. Palace, Man City, and we'll be quick here because we're going to obviously go through it more in depth on Friday. Palace, Man City, I think it's a no play or Palace a plus. What are they? Let's have a little look here. Plus 124 double chance. I don't trust City to win this game. I think that Palace could score and Palace could cause them problems. I think Palace's midfield could be better than Man City's. I mean, I don't know if Man City know exactly how they're going to play, so it might take them a good month to 6 weeks going. So I think Palace is definitely a maybe. Double chance at a big plus 124. Man City are minus 157. Normally they'd be like minus 210. Already the books are thinking that no one's going to want to be with Man City away from home against Palace, who, remember, were really good in stages away at Everton. Then you've got Liverpool versus Forest. It's a watching game because Forest are going to be really professional. Glasgow, listen, we know how well he did at Palace. They're going to be together. They're going to frustrate. And that means that sharpness of the mind, of the passing, of the execution, and the ruthlessness of Liverpool in the final third, we didn't see any of it. Gakpo struck from 25 yards, great finish, once in 95 minutes. And there could have been half a dozen opportunities. Liverpool have got to come out the blocks and be ruthless. If it goes over, it goes over. Don't worry. Just they've got to be ruthless. And I don't want to be anywhere near this game. I definitely want to watch it because I wouldn't put anyone off of maybe Forest plus 1.5 here, but you can't get involved in every game, and we will cover this probably again on Friday. Then we've got Bournemouth, Everton. Well, Bournemouth at plus 109 and their home record, and they were decent against Man City on the road, against the Everton side who were too easily carved open by Palace. You'd probably want to edge with Bournemouth if you had to get involved. Also, you know that Everton are going to want to try and keep this game tight. I don't see Everton having enough. I think it's a trenches type game, and who's then going to come out on top? I lean home side, but it's not a game this early on in the week that I'm jumping all over going. Plus 109, I want to be with Bournemouth. The next game is Coventry versus fellow newcomers Hull. Now, Coventry, I think, will have pace, will have enthusiasm. I think that they will, or they're favoured, but they're favoured like at -115 against a Hull side who have probably grown 3 or 4 inches from beating Man United last week. And I think that we might see cards in this game. I think that this might be a right tear up. I think that the quality may well come from Coventry. The huff and puff might come from Hull. The cards might be the way to go, because I think the Hull think that that's probably the way, and that's going to be their medicine, and it's going to be their tonic for picking up points on the road, especially against fellow newcomers in Coventry. Coventry last week, free hit away at Arsenal, so their season starts now. This week at home, the place will be buzzing. Favour Coventry, can't go near them. Look forward to watching this game. Don't underestimate Hull because of the way that they are going to set about them. Cards for Hull, I think that they may well pick up 3. So again, we'll look at that on Friday when all the markets are out. I see there's been a real trenches game where both sides turn up, and Hull think they could go maximum points, 6 out of 6, 2 wins out of 2. Coventry think they can beat Hull as well. So both teams turning up, no respect. I think there's a fight on our hands. Okay, then we're going to go Spurs Newcastle. Spurs, it's a lineup check straight away because I expect 5 changes minimum. I expect obviously Solanke comes in, Fernandes comes in, and they're all players that you'd want to be playing and having home debuts. New players coming in, Tonali at home. Defensively, hopefully we get Van der Ven back. Hopefully we get Porro back, who's half a leader. So I see them scoring. I don't see them keeping a clean sheet because of the pace on the break that we talked about with Newcastle. And Newcastle's positive because Newcastle weren't very good. They were 5 out of 10. And they got a 2-2 draw against Liverpool. I could see this game maybe being 2-2. And I saw that the over was like juiced massively at 2.5. I think we do see both teams to score an over. Wouldn't want to go near a winner. Can't trust them. It's another watching brief. In my eyes, I've got to completely dismiss that Spurs performance away last week at Brentford because it can't never be as bad as that. It just cannot be. There will be a completely different lineup, completely different attitude. Their season starts at home this week against Newcastle. Okay, then we're going to go Sunderland-Fulham. It's Sunderland all the way. Really impressed with them. They were the one side that got beaten, got nothing, but on the eye and the way they passed, the way they moved, their togetherness, it was fantastic. Angulo, new signing, unbelievable technique on a free kick. Confidence will be high. There's 2 ways to play this, and I think I'll play with them both. They were plus 158. They're now plus 140 on the money line. I think they win. If you want to go with draw no bet, minus 120, and put it in a parlay, do that. But I think that Sunderland scored twice here as well. And that's at minus 140. That's at plus 143. So Sunderland to score twice, plus 143. Sunderland to win. Take it, done it. It's in the bag. And I'm expecting the duck to be more than happy for my eggs to be in Sunderland's basket this weekend. Leeds, Brentford. Any other team other than Brentford, I would have been all over Leeds here. I mean, this is a game where a really fun one to watch. You'd probably say both teams to score and over. Athleticism all over the pitch. You've got goal scorers. You've got energy. You've got danger. And the reason I cannot go with Leeds to win this game is because Brentford will be on such a high. Brentford will be thinking that they can suck Leeds in and hit them on the break. Both teams scoring over is probably a way to go, but a watching brief and a really interested watch as well. So I think Leeds, not to be faded at home, can't go with them in this matchup because Brentford are a side who can score goals, can let goals in. That was a big surprise last week that they actually kept a clean sheet because normally it's Brentford to win and both teams to score. But this game is Leeds-Brentford, enjoyable watch. Okay. Arsenal Villa, or Villa host Arsenal. Arsenal win the game. Arsenal -1. Cannot give any positives. They can't get 5 players in. And if they do get 5 players in, then they're not going to be able to be settled against the champions elect for me. There's no reason for me to come away from Arsenal. Arsenal win this game. You want to put them in a parlay. They're -199 just to win the game. They're not winning the game 1-0. You want to go with team total, then go with that as well. I'm more than happy. Arsenal are -1.5. I think they win by 2 clear goals. Free hit at -1 is definitely the way to go. But it's Arsenal all the way. Too much movement, too much dominance in midfield. And I don't see where Villa can get close to this Arsenal side. I know that Villa beat Arsenal last year in this fixture. Now they're worlds apart. The whole heart of this Villa side, Villa squad, Villa confidence, remember they won a European trophy, has been ripped out by their own people. It's an absolute disgrace, and I feel sorry for the players, feel sorry for the manager. I don't know how this is going to end, but this short term, it's not going to be great. Arsenal win. Parlay piece, but Arsenal win. Chelsea-Brighton. I think Chelsea might have enough here, but this could be a bonkers game. I think Brighton score. So you go Chelsea to win and both teams to score. If you're brave, you go just Chelsea to win. They're not winning 1-0. There's no clean sheet with that back line. I don't care who Chelsea are playing. They're not keeping clean sheets. But I don't care who Chelsea are playing. Pedro, Palmer, Rodgers, maybe a Neto, maybe Enzo that gets to sit in there instead of, he's not going to play 2 holding midfielders. So I think Chelsea can win. I think Brighton are obviously flattered because they played almost like Tottenham-esque against Aston Villa. So, yeah, Chelsea, I think they're a backable price at around -106. Chelsea to win and both teams to score. Chelsea and over. Just the over 2.5 goals is -142. There's a parlay. Maybe the over 2.5 goals, if Chelsea go bonkers and do keep a clean sheet and win 3-0, and you put them with Arsenal, that's absolutely a way to go. And we'll nail that down on Friday night when we do the weekend preview. Manchester United versus Ipswich. I've taken it already. Man United will crush Ipswich. Okay? Everything you would want as a Man United player coming off that coach back at Old Trafford after being embarrassed of your own performance, you'd want Ipswich the next week. Ipswich will not get close in midfield, meaning they'll get time, turn, pass, move. I think Man United score 3. Manchester United, I think, score 3. I've got Man United -1.5 at +115. I thought that would be -120. I think this game starts Manchester United 3, Ipswich, and they could be a clean sheet because I think that they will push them back. And I'm not sure how Ipswich can impose themselves. I think they almost might play the tourist act, looking around the theatre of dreams. We're playing at Manchester United. I think Man United crush. And I think that the 3 points erases what happened at Hull. And also, it might just spur them on to be up for the fight. Man United, on paper, have just had a dream start of playing 2 of the 3 newly promoted sides. And they fluffed their lines on the first one. They won't fluff their lines on the second. So -1.5 at Man United, +115, absolute banker. I think they score over 2.5 goals. I mean, this score is whatever they want, whatever they desire. Too sharp, too clinical, and the matchup is just fantastic for Manchester United. So Sunderland pressed the button early. Man United -1.5 pressed the button early. I really, really look forward to going over these games when we've decided what we're going to do this weekend on Friday. Please, if you like this content, then subscribe, like, and also share it. And remember, you can watch this back as well. So if you're saying, oh, he said this, or did he say that, or do I want to be with a first goal scorer, you can do that as well. You've been watching Gordon Watson live on Kick. Thanks for your support, and I'll see you all very, very soon.